Well, I hope that everybody is having a good week so far. And with it being Thursday, we want to turn back to the book of Ecclesiastes together and pick up where we left off. Today, we're going to be in Ecclesiastes chapter 9. And hope that you can turn there with me or just listen along as we go through it to see what Solomon went on to say, what more he has to tell us. And really, chapter 9 is somewhat of a continuation of what he was talking about in chapter 8, about how we are all human, we're all flesh, we're all mortal, our time is limited. Death comes to all, as he's going to remind us here again in chapter 9, and death is, as they say, no respecter of persons. It doesn't matter if you're a good person or if you're an evil person. We're all going to die one day. It's just part of this fleshly body, this fleshly world that we live in. And so, of course, we've got to be preparing for eternity, though. That we've got to be ready. We've got to be living the life now, knowing that one day we're going to die. But we've got to live for God now so that we can live with Him for eternity in heaven. But let's look at what Solomon says here today in Ecclesiastes chapter 9. Really, the first part of this chapter is all about this subject of time and chance and good and evil. And then he's got a section at the end of this chapter where he begins again to talk about how valuable wisdom truly is. So chapter 9, Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 1. He says, "For I considered all this in my heart, so that I could declare it all, that the righteous and the wise and their works are in the hand of God. People know neither love nor hatred by anything they see before them. All things come alike to all." What does he mean? So again, he's talking about here the things about the righteous and the wise and their works and that are in the hand of God. We are all in the hand of God, but the righteous and upright certainly are carrying out the will of God. God gives us knowledge of all the things in this life that we need to know. But he says in verse 2, all things come alike to all. One event happens to the righteous and the wicked, to the good, the clean, and the unclean, to him who sacrifices and the one who does not sacrifice. As is the good, so is the sinner. He who takes an oath as he who fears an oath. This is an evil in all that is done under the sun, he says, that one thing happens to everybody. Truly the hearts of the sons of men are full of evil. Madness is in their hearts while they live, and after that they go to the dead. But for him who is joined to all the living, there is hope. For a living dog is better than a dead lion. A living dog is better than a dead lion. Again, Solomon pointing out that while we are still alive, while we are still breathing, have time and opportunity to live and to do good, to be wise, then there's hope. But once we're dead, dead like Rover, dead all over, dead like a dead lion, in death, there's nothing more we can do in this life on this earth. As he goes on to say, for the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing, and they have no more reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. Also their love, their hatred, their envy have now perished. Nevermore will they have a share in anything done under the sun. Solomon talking about whether good or bad, really. When we die, there's nothing more we can do in this life. Our life is sealed. Where we spend eternity is where we're going to spend eternity. So again, a living dog is better than a dead lion. Because while we're alive and breathing, we have opportunity to live the life God calls us to live. So he says, go eat your bread with joy and drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has already accepted your works. Let your garments always be white, and let your head lack no oil. Live joyfully with the wife whom you love all the days of your vain life, which he, God, has given you under the sun, all your days of vanity. For it is your portion in life and in the labor which you perform under the sun. So Solomon again telling us that with the time we do have, we need to be rejoicing. We need to take joy. We need to use the blessings God gives us, the joys God gives us in this life, because it's all temporary. It's passing. I know sometimes we may feel like, oh, we've got forever even with our loved ones. He talks about, a wife and a husband, especially when they're young, may think, oh, we've got forever together. Well, forever is not that long on this earth. And we need to enjoy the blessings and life God gives us now, which is why Solomon then says, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with your might. Whatever your hands find to do it with your might, the energy, time, opportunity, because there is no work or device or knowledge or wisdom in the grave where you are going. Because once we're dead, there's nothing more we can do in this life. And so he continues this thought and says, I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, the battle is not to the strong, the bread is not to the wise, the riches are not to men of understanding, favor is not to men of skill, but rather time and chance. Time and chance happen to them all. For man also does not know his time, like fish taken in a cruel net, like birds caught in a snare. So the sons of men are snared in an evil time when it falls suddenly upon them. His point is about time and chance, that really we all have limited time. And there are opportunities and chances and things in life, good and bad, that happen to all people, whether good or bad. The point is that generally speaking, whether we're good or bad, things can happen to all of us. Good things can happen to all of us, whether we're living in sin or not. Bad things can happen to us in this life, whether we're living in sin or not. Time and chance happen to all when it comes to this physical life, when it comes to the physical things that happen in our lives on this earth. Now, spiritually speaking, that's another story. Spiritually speaking, I think even as Sodom's about to do and finishing out this chapter, is to talk about how we need to live in the wisdom of God. And that is blessing, because that will mean eternal life after death. I mean, what are we living for? Again, you take God out of the equation and it's hopeless, it's pointless, everything's vain and empty, and death brings destruction. But with God, there is hope, there is life. He goes on to say, verse 13, this wisdom I have also seen under the sun, and it seemed great to me that there was a little city with few men in it, and a great king came against it, besieged it, and built great snares around it. Now there was found in the little city a poor wise man, and he by his wisdom delivered the city, yet no one remembered that same poor man. Kind of a bittersweet thing, that wisdom is what truly delivers. This poor, wise man delivered a city, but nobody ends up remembering the wise, poor man. It's not about us being remembered. But truly, wisdom is valuable. As he goes on to say, I said, wisdom is better than strength. Nevertheless, the poor man's wisdom, though, is despised, and his words are not heard. Words of the wise spoken quietly should be heard rather than the shout of a ruler of fools. Wisdom is better than the weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good. So really, it's a question of what are we living by? Are we living by the wisdom of God? Or are we living by the foolishness of sin in this world? The wisdom of God is what is going to be a blessing to us in this life physically and above all spiritually in eternity. But the ways of the world and sin and pleasures and It's going to could a lot of problems in this physical life for sure, but sin will certainly bring destruction in eternity. And so what we've got to do, as Solomon reminds us here, that while we're going through this life, and time and chance is going to happen to all of us, we all have limited time. There are chances things could happen to any of us. But are we living and walking in the wisdom of God to guide us through this life so that we can, after death, when our time here on earth is done, we can spend eternity with Him in heaven? Let's choose the wisdom of God over the foolishness of the world so that we will have hope in this life and in the life to come. God bless.